There you go. So there's no background. Okay. All righty then. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world today. It's Tia Rogers, and we're here for Wealth Talk. We're going to be finishing up Powernomics. We were talking about some of the key elements that we need, right? And yes, we were talking about the implications for Black America. Yeah, okay. And we talked about how pulling group resources together was beneficial in the ethno-aggression paradigm, right? And that's where we were yesterday. So I see we're like a minute before 6. So I don't want to waste your time because it's a lot of good information here that I'm sharing with you. And I want to get it out to you so that we can kind of continue to go through and see why the importance of economic integrations, being able to identify what is the direction and the purpose of coming together as a unit and moving forward to gain some economic and political powers where we get to kind of say how we like to govern ourselves, right? So as we're moving right along in celebration of Martin Luther King's Day, let's just begin with, it's called Move Towards Voluntary Separation. It's the title of the chapter. And it's called Regrouping Blacks Through Ethno-Aggression is Necessary to Counter the Effects of Individualism, which teaches Blacks to oppose each other rather than pool resources and cooperate with one another. Ethno-aggression would give Blacks a powerful political and economic base. To this end, while serving as the education advisor to then Florida Governor Reuben Askew during integration, I always stressed the importance of Blacks retaining their communities and educational institutions. And at the state of Florida should not place the burden of integration on the shoulders of Blacks. While speaking out on the issues of school integrations, I said to an audience that Black people should not have to leave their communities to find quality schools, homes, or consumer products. After my speech, a concerned Southern white gentleman approached me and said, "Dr. Anderson, after listening to you, I am more confused than ever about what Black people want. On one hand, you have Reverend Martin Luther King pushing for integration. On the other hand, you have Malcolm X pushing for separation. Which end of the stick do you Black people want?" I answered that we did not want either end of the stick. We want the same rights and privileges that every other group has, the right to choose. I asked the gentleman, have you ever asked Indians, Hispanics, Jews, Arabs, gays, women, or Asians which end of the stick they want? The gentleman shook his head and said, "You were right. You all should have that right. I've just never thought about it like that." Most Americans have probably never thought about it like that either. Black people have an obligation to come together as a group in their own best interests. America should be neither threatened nor puzzled by the thought that Blacks would not want to be forced into either choice. Blacks in America are the only ethnic or racial group that continues to wrestle with the philosophical debate, excuse me, with the philosophical debate over integration versus segregation, when in fact, neither one has to be accepted. As long as people are not forced into separate sectors and no group has monopolistic control of the resources that are locked into their institutions and communities, there is nothing wrong with separation or integration. Groups do not have to hate and exploit each other simply because they are informally divided. The failure of integration is tragic, especially when one considers that among all the social called minorities, only Blacks have openly pursued integration. Hispanics, Asians, Arabs, and Jews, all of whom are members of the majority society, are unilaterally committed to maintaining their own separate communities and organizations, even though they have the option of assimilating. Though ethnic immigrants are included in this nation's definition of minority and are eligible for affirmative action assistance, the majority society does not require them to integrate their people and resources. If they do not have to integrate to be accepted, why do Blacks? Would not a voluntary return to some form of separation provide Black America some of the communal strengths of other racial groups and ethnics? For instance, Jews tried integration in Europe in the mid-19th century, but it did not work. Later, when they were forced into ghettos in various European cities, as horrible as the situation was, they found one advantage. Being separated from the rest of the population made Jews more self-reliant, more productive, and more zealous, committed to preserving their group's unity, culture, and wealth at all costs. Aggregating around our own assets and self-interest can do the same for us as Black Americans. An ethno-aggregation paradigm has the task of recapturing and concentrating Black cultural resources scattered by the integration process. The integration process took away our sense of community, leadership, talent, and brain power, labor, disposable income, athletes and entertainers, business and professional, middle class, and cultural assets. Retrieving some of these lost assets and storing them inside of Black communities will give us competitive advantages and platforms upon which we can begin to build our own political, economic, and cultural systems. And then he has a diagram here of the broad systems. So we'll go into the paradigm, part 2, the vertical integration. Okay, now that we understand the concept of ethno-integration and the process of pulling group resources, let us move on to the second empowerment paradigm, vertical integration. Vertical integration is a directional paradigm that comes into play after Blacks as a group have ethno-aggregated around their most common and prominent characteristics. There is a commonly accepted rule in sociology that when ethnic groups are wedged in hierarchies of wealth, power, and privilege, competitive conflicts are inevitable. Vertical integration empowers Blacks to be territorial and vertically mobile. It places Black self-interest first and propels Blacks in an upward economic direction. Because that is where the nation's wealth and power are localized. Wealth, income, businesses, privileges, and resources. Powers are fixed in parallel. With whiteness at the top of the resource ladder and Blackness at the bottom. Wealth and power resources are continuously and disproportionately distributed to those at the top first. These resources circulate horizontally among members of the white in-group before proportions of the wealth and power trickle down to Blacks and other outgroups at the lower levels. On the bottom level, Black Americans get what those above either did not want or didn't need. Either way, the result is the same. It is always too little, too late. However, we have a choice. We can continue to wait, hoping for those at the top to have a change of heart and share some of this nation's vast fortune, but that is against the grain of history and not likely to occur. Our best remaining option is to implement a national plan with strategies for moving up the nation's peaking order and compete for wealth and power resources at every level. Vertical integration versus ethno-aggregation. Vertical integration, working hand in hand with ethno-aggregation, is symbolized by the power T illustrated in figure 6, which I did not show you guys. A group aggregates and concentrates its resources at the base of the stem of the T for maximum strength. Once Blacks have concentrated their resources, they should move them up the stem towards the crossbar at its top. As Blacks ascend the stem, they compete at each class level with each and every ethnic, religious, language, and gender group. Regardless of how high Blacks ascend, if their resources are pooled and connected, they continue to receive cultural and racial support from their base, their roots. They hold all newly captured turf so that other Blacks from below can have a clear channel through which they too can ascend. Those Blacks who reach the top of the T can then capture new territory by moving horizontally into non-Black communities and pursuing political and business opportunities. As more Blacks reach the top, they too can expand horizontally to capture new political and economic resources. The earlier example of Arab Americans in Detroit exemplifies power T activity. Social integration and horizontal negatives. Black Americans as a group cannot improve their wealth and power holdings by advancing horizontal social integration. Wealth, power, and other resources are not stored horizontally in a peaking order, nor are they stored on the same level with Black Americans. Black Americans are locked into a caste system upon which these nations' class systems rest. Horizontal movement places Blacks in economic competition with poor whites who have yet to ascend the peaking order. Social integration in the old horizontal model and Model 6 has misled Blacks into believing that wealth and power resources are stored just over the next horizon or in the next suburb, all within marching distance. Also, horizontal movement locks Blacks into competition with immigrants and other evolving minorities. Multiculturalism, cultural diversity, and a colorblind society give the illusion of progress. Blacks were convinced into believing that aligning with ethnic immigrants who have been in this country less than 30 years is somehow progress for Black people. Aligning with these immigrant groups in their horizontal issues detoured Blacks. Moreover, it blurred the obligations that this nation's advantaged society has to its disadvantaged Black citizens. Even now, every Black initiative is burdened with a universalism that requires them to share their fruits of their victory with other horizontal groups competing against Black America. Black Americans must not allow the vertical line of obligation between themselves and whites to be blurred. Blacks are injured by those who do not make distinctions between them and other minority groups. Equating other minority groups with Blacks demonstrates a poor understanding of history and hides the fact that Black people remain at the bottom of the pile. Horizontal movement to align Blacks with other minority or special interest groups erase Black Americans' special moral claim on our society and history. Although our labor built this country, we have not been properly recognized nor compensated. Worse, we have been treated as just another aggrieved minority group. We are reduced to just another political group with outstretched palms, a special interest vying for the same affirmative action programs as Eskimos and Salvadorians. We recaptured our special moral claim and status by aspiring upward. Horizontal movement promotes the social phenomenon called crabbing among Black people. When the multitude of Black Americans are locked in the lowest horizontal level of our society, like crabs in a barrel, they cannot escape. Misery does love company. Social integration requires most of us to move laterally. We remain on the same horizontal or class level with most Blacks, even though we may have received a job promotion or moved into a new integrated suburb. Every Black remains in competition with every other Black for the few financial, political, and social crumbs that are available. Crabbing will dissipate when we move vertically. Rather than competing with each other for crumbs, we compete with other class levels for the whole cake as we move vertically. If there is crabbing, it will be done as a group in competition with other groups who are crabbing for their respective groups. Horizontal movement does not redistribute the ownership and control of wealth and power resources. Instead, it simply wastes time and resources. As an example, how did moving from the back to the front of the bus, from the ghetto to the suburbs, from a Black restaurant to a white restaurant, or from a Black school to a white school, improve Black people's ownership and control of wealth and power? For example, before horizontal integration of the 1960s, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, had a Black city bus line, Black theaters, Black hotels, Black restaurants, and Black communities. But now all of these things are gone. We are still suffering from the waste of horizontal movement. If we had been thinking vertically rather than moving to the front of the bus, our concerns would have been instead about Black people manufacturing, owning and operating, repairing, and chartering the city bus lines. How much tangible difference does it make where you sit on the bus if the destination and the quality of the seating is the same? This is a distinction without a difference. Social and horizontal integration played major roles in killing off Winston-Salem's only Black bus line and other Black businesses. Where is the vertical progress when Blacks are still just passengers or customers in businesses owned by others? As indicated in Figure 7, horizontal integration is at cross purposes with the self-interest of Blacks. Racism runs up and down from the highest point to the lowest point. It affects every member of the Black race, regardless of education, employment, class, or party affiliation. The only Blacks who benefit from engaging in cross-purpose activities are those directly behind the point where the horizontal issue intersects. For example, when Black women devote their resources to the horizontal gender issue, any benefits from their efforts will not occur to the race, but to all women. But within the gender category, benefits gained will trickle down to Black women who will still be on the bottom of the gender issue. Therefore, the horizontal issues such as gender, political affiliation, and class should be secondary to racism and the structural economic inequalities that it protects. Horizontal issues that affect everybody have the potential to overshadow racism, divert resources, and prolong this nation's racial inequalities. The so-called aggregated minorities, aggrieved minorities and women upon whom horizontal issues focus together form a majority of the white population. When Black Americans participate with these groups, not only are they working at cross purposes with their own best interests, their participation pits them against other Blacks. Now, the advantage of vertical integration in association with the Powernomics empowerment vision of economic and political reform for Black America. The vertical integration paradigm has numerous practical and important purposes. 9 purposes are listed here. One is the vertical integration, and it gives Black Americans access to the primary holders of the nation's wealth and resources, powers. 2, it gives Black America a collective sense of direction for their collective self-interest. 3, it gives Blacks a channel for upward mobility. 4, it is a tool to capture new physical, financial, and cultural territory. 6, it gives Black Americans the mechanisms to control an economic industry from the raw material at the bottom to the retail markets at the top. 7, it instills Black Americans with a mindset that encourages them to concentrate and direct resources for maximum impact, benefits, and visibility. 8, it promotes a hierarchy of authority and respect within Black families, Black neighborhoods, and Black people. 9, finally, it reduces Black America's vulnerability to competitive groups by dissuading them for engaging in self-defeating horizontal integration, lateral mobility, and cross-purpose issues. Vertical integration advantages Black Americans by vertically linking its authority and institutional leaders with the Black masses. Let me see. All right, and we have application of vertical integration. See, and as chapter 5 through 8 contains specific applications of vertical integration. However, this paradigm applies across the board to all aspects of group empowerment. It applies especially to the businesses, education, and political principle of self-interest, unity, and monopolistic dominance. The vertical integration concept creates an alternative structure within which Blacks can collectively compete in most aspects of our society. And those businesses in which Black entrepreneurs have competitive advantages based upon powernomics empowerment principles, the vertical integration paradigm facilitates industrialization. Once Black communities are rebuilt, industries, more so than businesses, will provide them with greater wealth, income, employment, and power building opportunities. Equally important, vertical integration serves as a mechanism for controlling every layer of businesses within an industry. For instance, if Black manufacturers of Black hair care products form a vertical industry, it will be possible for them as well as other Black entrepreneurs to move up or down in the production, distribution, and retail processes. They will be able to protect themselves by establishing control over the raw materials and manufacturing, and by building their own suppliers, distributors, and retail outlets. They will also be able to collectively encourage and support independent Black suppliers and retail outlets clearly. Vertically integration holds enormous potential for Blacks. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'm going to share, I've been going back and forth with you guys, right? Just trying to share some information, very enlightening. Hope you got something out of that. So we're going to wrap up the chapter that we were on and the 12 universal laws of success. And we were talking about enthusiasm, right? So we're wrapping up the chapter on enthusiasm, and it reads, the universal law of human magnetism states that you attract what you are, and you are what you think about most of the time. This universal law operates through a process of radiation and attraction. Each of us is like a magnet radiating a form of energy which attracts or repels, like or unlike, thoughts, feelings, and associations. Human magnetism operates primarily through your attitude and your enthusiasm. Your attitude projects who you are, what you are about, and where you are going. It may either be positive or negative. When it is positive, you project knowledge, understanding, courage, and faith. When it is negative, you project ignorance, fear, and doubt. The primary manifestation of a negative attitude is fear. Enthusiasm is one of your most important assets. It gets for you the cooperation of other people, attracting them to your way of thinking and acting. Then there's a few questions asked here, because this is like a study guide. Self-evaluation, right? Self-awareness, self-discovery. because we have to get us together first as individuals, and then we can help somebody else, right? So question number 1 is, are you surrounded by people who constantly misunderstand you? Question number 2, what are you projecting in your attitude that attracts these people into your space? Question number 3, do you have fears that impact your success journey? And what are they? Question number 4, how can you overcome these fears? And question number 5 is, what can you do to be more enthusiastic about your life, about your job, about your relationships? So we're going to end it there so that you can take some time to answer those questions. I hope you enjoyed the readings from Powernomics of Dr. Claude Anderson. We've come a long way and we've got more ways to go. We're not done yet, but this is a great guidebook to help you understand and break down the whole economics of Black people and how we can come together and join forces to build wealth in our own homes, in our own communities, and work collectively together before we go out and work with other cultures, other groups, other nationalities, other minorities. It doesn't say that we are not liking them. It's saying that we just want to build our own first and have our own resources and political power, and someone to have a word, some say into what goes on that impacts our lives and can affect us in every way. So it is now 6:30, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to let you go. And I'm going to wish you a wonderful, blessed, amazing week. I want to thank you for joining me for this 88 days into 2023, because we are on the 16th day. So we should have a lot of things at least rolling. You know, I don't know. I know what I have going on. And I just hope that all of you are working hard towards your dreams and really taking it serious, being intentional about what it is, taking the steps that you need to take, seeing, really looking at your life and assessing where you are at in your life right now. And if you are you got some debt or whatever, okay? So we know there's good debt and there's bad debt, but where are you at in the scheme of things? You know, right now, this time of year is a great time. You can go to, www.annualcreditreports.com and get a copy. You can see what's on your credit report. If you've never done it before and you don't know what's on your credit report, now is a good time, someplace for you to go, and you can get them for free. That way you can get a good assessment as to where you are and what you need to take care of. And I always invite you to come and join us for Wealth Talk Recession Proof every evening. Well, not every evening, because we don't meet every evening, but to come and join us for a private overview. You can listen in, hear the information. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not for you, who do you know? Like I say, I know that I was one that needed to get some things on a bow. I tried it, doing it on my own. I was able to accomplish some things, but I wasn't able to get some other things done. And learning how to manage your money, life on life terms, things happen. Hey, we understand. We've all been there, done that. We're trying to get on track now. So if you're trying to get on track, or you're just trying to maintain, or maybe you are looking to start something new, and you might want to look at where you are to see, you know, if you have enough to get started and get busy. And like I always tell you, you are a winner from the time you were conceived in your mother's womb, and you're born with everything that you need inside of you. And as you are on your journey of building your life and building a life that you want to have for you, know that where you are right now, you are a success. You are successful at doing exactly what it is that you're doing right now. If you want to expand a little more or broaden your horizons, you may want to look at some other opportunities, or maybe the information that I'm sharing with you is setting some light bulbs off in your head. I know when I read it, it set light bulbs off in my head, and lets me provides me information that I was not aware of. So, it's each one teach one. So as I'm getting enlightened, I like to share it with you just to see, who else is it? Someone else like me that it's the first time I ever hearing of Dr. Claude Anderson, and or possibly purchasing his books to read them to see exactly what he's talking about. The gentleman's got some pretty good tips in here, and he's got valid reasons as to why. And as Black Americans, we we should have some control over our communities and neighborhoods. Maybe it wouldn't be the way that it is. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that it's time to find a new plan. And I know that many of us are doing our due diligence, and we are raising our voices, and we are putting in the work that it takes to make our community safer and better. And to you, congratulations, kudos, thank you. We honor you for your service, just like Dr. Martin Luther King and so many others with him, as well. But like I said, we've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go, as we are building stronger and sustainable families, improving our communities and neighborhoods, and eliminating some of the ills that we definitely have challenges in, having them in our different communities and different areas. But I didn't want to babble on. That was what I had planned for us this evening. And with due respect, I thank you for allowing me to come and disrupt your evening, every evening, for these 88 days challenge, because I'm so excited. We're 16 days in. I can't wait to see where we're going to be at come January 31st, because everybody moves at a different speed. Like I said, everyone's different. Our dreams are not the same, but our common goal is the same, and that's becoming better. And as we're growing, learning, and healing, and learning the art of mastering and investing in ourselves. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for this evening, and I'm going to say good night to the Facebook group. Thank you for joining. All right, and good night to YouTube. I almost forgot who I was, who I got all plugged up here. Good night, YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to reach out if you need any services or want any more information about ECU, the Protection Plan membership. Yeah, how about that? The Protection